It was the kind of evening that made the city hum, polished, glamorous, detached. From the back seat of her chauffeured black Lexus, Madeline Grayson, CEO of a luxury fashion empire, adjusted the diamond clasp on her handbag without once looking up. She didn't have to. The city knew her, and she expected the same from it: distance, obedience, admiration. The car halted at a red light on Lexington Avenue, and that's when she saw him. Slumped against the side of a chipped brick building, drenched from head to toe in rain, a homeless man stared back at her. Their eyes locked, only for a moment, but it was long enough. He stood slowly, raising one trembling hand. Not demanding, not aggressive, just reaching. Madeline's eyes narrowed. She clicked the window lock and turned away. "Drive," she snapped at her chauffeur. "Yes, ma'am." She didn't look back. She never did. But her assistant, Zoe, seated beside her, watched quietly. "Do you know him?" Zoe asked softly. Madeline scoffed. "Does it matter? There's one of them on every corner now." Zoe said nothing. Madeline pulled out her phone, scrolling through PR reports and fashion forecasts. Behind them, the light turned green, and the Beggar faded into the rain. The following morning, the Grayson Plaza glittered with press, influencers, and cameras. Madeline stepped out onto the red carpet outside her flagship store, heels clicking with authority. Paparazzi called her name. She waved, posed, perfect. Inside, models prepped for the launch of her winter line, Elegance Reborn. And while the crowd praised the sequence, not one of them noticed the man across the street. Same ragged coat, same empty stare, the same man Madeline had ignored. Only this time, he held something in his hand, a folded newspaper, with her on the front page. That night, Zoe approached Madeline as she was removing her jewelry in her penthouse dressing room. "Ma'am," she said carefully, "there's something I think you should see." Madeline sighed. "If it's about the headlines, tell PR to double their push." "No," Zoe said, "it's not about that." She handed her a photo, a printed still from a surveillance cam. Madeline squinted. It was blurry, but unmistakable. Her, in the car, and the homeless man, just outside. "What is this?" Zoe hesitated. "It's going viral. People are saying he was trying to ask for help, that he recognized you." Madeline rolled her eyes. "They always want attention." Zoe frowned. "But I think he really did know you." Madeline's hand froze. "What did you say?" That night, Madeline tossed in bed, unable to sleep. She opened a box she hadn't looked at in years. Photos from her early modeling days. Scrapbooks. Letters. People she'd cut off. Forgotten. People she'd had to leave behind to become who she was. And then she saw it. A photo. From night, two teens sitting on the edge of a campus fountain laughing. Herself. And a boy beside her. Same eyes. Same jawline. Same worn jacket. Her hands shook. No. The next evening, Madeline sat in silence, staring at the television. The 6 o'clock anchor's voice filled the room. A viral video is sparking debate about the growing wealth divide in New York after a homeless man appeared to recognize burgeonator fashion mogul Madeline Grayson, only to be ignored. A new image popped up on screen. Not the surveillance footage, but a yearbook photo. The anchor continued. Sources have identified the man as Aaron Ellison, a once promising medical student who mysteriously dropped out in the late 90s. His connection to Ms. Grayson remains unclear. Madeline's wineglass shattered on the floor. She didn't move, because now she remembered everything. Back then, Madeline wasn't Madeline Grayson. She was Maddie Ellis, daughter of a struggling seamstress, living off scholarships and dreams. And Aaron? He was her first love. The boy who used to walk her home with torn shoes and poetry in his back pocket. They'd promised to build a future together, until she was offered a modeling contract in Paris. "I can't come with you," Aaron had said. "I have to finish med school." "You'll follow," she said. But he never did, and she never looked back. Zoe stood in the doorway of Madeline's office the next morning. "He's still outside," she said. "Same place, every day." Madeline didn't respond. Zoe stepped closer. "You knew him, didn't you?" Madeline's voice was low. "I didn't just know him, I left him behind." Zoe hesitated. "I think you should talk to him." Madeline looked up, eyes full of fear. "I'm not the girl he knew, he'll hate me." "Maybe," Zoe said. "Or maybe he'll remind you who that girl used to be." Later that day, Madeline stood across the street, watching Aaron. He was thinner now, weathered, hollow, but still him. She took a step forward, then another. But before she could speak, Someone shoved a camera in her face. "You planning to give him a jacket? Or just another cold shoulder, Miss Grayson?" She turned, flinched. The crowd had noticed her. She froze. And in that hesitation, Aaron looked up. Their eyes met again. This time, he blinked, then turned away. Madeline stood there, choking on guilt, as flashbulbs burst around her. That night, Madeline sat alone in her office with the lights off. On the table sat an envelope. She'd had a private investigator dig into Aaron's life. What she found made her blood run cold. Inside were hospital files.
Dates, names.
Aaron hadn't dropped out of medical school. He'd been diagnosed with something serious. He was being treated until his funding was pulled. And the name on the funding withdrawal? M. Ellis. She whispered, stunned. "They used my scholarship to cover my plane ticket to Paris." It hit her like a bullet. Her success had come at the cost of his life. And she never even knew, until now. But then, her phone buzzed. A notification. Breaking news! Aaron Ellison missing. Witnesses say he was last seen staggering near a subway tunnel downtown. The screen zooms in on Madeline's face, frozen in horror. The morning after the broadcast, Madeline sat on the edge of her leather sofa, bleary-eyed, hair unbrushed, still in last night's evening gown. TV anchors debated her character. Pundits speculated. Was it a PR stunt? Was she guilty? Was it real? She didn't care. Her eyes were fixed on one headline. Homeless man, identified as ex-medical student Aaron Ellison, missing after viral incident. Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone. "I need every camera, every favor, every dollar," she told her assistant. "I need to find him." 2 hours later, she stood on Lexington Avenue without makeup, without heels, wearing sneakers and a hoodie. No one recognized her, or if they did, they pretended not to. She walked past the shelter, past the alley, past the spot where Aaron once stood. He stayed in the tunnel sometimes, a soup kitchen volunteer told her. Under the 53rd Street overpass, said the noise helped him sleep. She went there. The smell was thick, the shadows heavier than she expected. She called out, "Aaron, it's Maddie." Her voice echoed, no answer. But on the wall, scrawled in chalk, was a symbol, a spiral, one he used to doodle in her notebooks during college lectures. She reached out and touched it. He'd been there. Recently, that night, back in her apartment, Madeline opened the last box from her college years. Inside, letters, all from Aaron, unopened. She had told her manager to toss anything that wasn't fashion-related when she moved to Paris. And now, she unfolded one. "Maddie, I'm proud of you, always was. I hope the lights in Paris are as bright as you dreamed. If you ever wonder what you left behind, it wasn't anger, just questions. I miss you." Tears blurred her vision. She'd never responded. She never even knew. Zoe knocked gently on her office door the next day. "I've contacted the local shelters, soup lines, and community clinics. Nothing yet." Madeline wiped her face. "Thank you." Zoe hesitated. "You really loved him, didn't you?" Madeline nodded. "I didn't know how to love back then. I only knew how to run." Zoe sat down beside her. "Then don't run now." That afternoon, a call came in from a city hospital. A man fitting Aaron's description had been brought in 2 nights ago after collapsing in a subway tunnel. Malnourished, delirious, no ID. "Where is he?" Madeline asked. But the nurse was hesitant. "He was moved!" "Moved where?" "To Horizon Institute," the nurse said softly. Madeline froze. She knew that name. It was a private mental health facility. One owned by Grayson Pharmaceuticals, her father's company. An hour later, Madeline walked through the pristine halls of Horizon Institute. Every step echoed with guilt. When the nurse led her into the observation wing, she stopped cold. There behind the glass was Aaron, hair trimmed, clean clothes, but his eyes, distant, vacant. He sat at a table, staring at a puzzle he wasn't putting together. Madeline's breath caught in her throat. "Aaron." The nurse looked at her sympathetically.
He doesn't talk much, not since he was brought in, but he hums sometimes. A tune we can't identify.
Madeline's voice cracked. "Scarborough Fair. He used to sing it to me," she whispered. She entered the room. He looked up. His eyes flickered. Recognition? Or just a flicker? "Maddie," he said, voice hoarse. She rushed to him, dropping to her knees. "I'm here. I'm so sorry. I should have come sooner." He blinked slowly. "You left." I didn't know what they did to you. They didn't do it all, he whispered. I broke too. I waited too long for something that wasn't coming. Tears streamed down her cheeks. But you still wrote. You still remembered me. He nodded. I remember everything. A pause. Except what comes next. Back at the office, Zoe dug through Horizon Institute's records. Something wasn't right. Aaron's admission file was signed by Grayson Holdings. Not recently, but 10 years ago. Zoe's hands trembled. She found a note in a locked file. Subject transferred from public facility under executive order. Suppress all contact, seal identity for safety of assets. Assets? She clicked a linked file and froze. Attached was a contract. Signed by Margaret Grayson, Madeline's mother. Zoe printed the file and raced back to Madeline. She found her in Aaron's hospital room, singing softly. He was asleep in the chair beside her. Zoe handed her the file. Madeline skimmed through it. Her face went pale. What is this? Zoe whispered. They institutionalized him. A decade ago, he was trying to go public about Grayson Pharmaceuticals' illegal dunding of experimental drugs. Madeline's heart dropped. Her voice, barely audible. He wasn't sick! Zoe nodded. They made him disappear. Madeline's knees buckled, because at the bottom of the document, in sharp black ink, was a final line. Subject poses threat to corporate reputation. Classified unstable. Do not release. And below it, her mother's signature. Madeline sat in her corner office. Documents from Horizon Institute spread across her desk. The lights were off. Rain tapped on the glass. And for the first time in her adult life, she felt like a stranger in her own empire. Zoe stood nearby, pacing. You can't unsee this, she said. Madeline nodded slowly. I don't want to. Then she picked up her phone. Call my mother. Tell her I'm coming. Margaret Grayson lived in a mansion that looked more like a fortress. It was quiet when Madeline arrived. Too quiet. Her mother waited in the study, wine glass in hand, framed by oil paintings of Grayson patriarchs. I assume you've read the files, Margaret said, without looking up. You institutionalized him, Madeline replied, voice trembling. Margaret sipped. I protected our name. You were about to launch. He was about to expose our funding schemes. You destroyed his life. Her mother looked her dead in the eye. He was a casualty, not a victim. Madeline stood frozen. She wanted to scream, to cry, to tear down the house her mother had built on silence and scandal. I loved him. Margaret sighed. You were young, naive. You would have given up everything for a man with nothing. Madeline stepped closer. He had something, more than you ever did. Margaret's voice sharpened. You're only standing here now because I made the hard choices you were too soft to make. No, Madeline said coldly. I'm standing here despite them. Back at the office, Zoe kept digging. She accessed Horizon's private logs and found something even more disturbing. A letter from Aaron written while inside the institution. A letter meant for Madeline. It had been intercepted. Marked classified, never delivered. Zoe clicked on a recorded log entry. Aaron's voice. If she ever finds me, tell her I never blamed her. I just wanted her to know the truth before it killed me. Zoe stared at the screen, tears in her eyes. They weren't just hiding him. They'd kept Madeline from him. The next morning, Madeline stood before a sea of reporters. Her eyes were tired, but her voice was clear. I have built an empire on the idea of beauty and empowerment, but what I didn't know, or chose not to know, was that part of that success came from injustice. Cameras flashed. Years ago, a man I loved was wrongfully institutionalized. His name is Aaron Ellison, and my family was responsible. Gasps echoed across the room. Zoe watched from the wings. She's doing it, she whispered. She's really doing it. Madeline continued. I'm stepping down as CEO, effective immediately, and I will personally fund a legal investigation into the actions of Grayson Pharmaceuticals and Horizon Institute. Back at the Grayson estate, Margaret slammed her wine glass against the marble floor. A call buzzed on her phone. The private number. She answered. A voice whispered. She's going off script. Margaret clenched her jaw, then remind her what's at stake. That evening, Madeline's town car was forced off the road. A black SUV tailing them clipped the back wheel near a tunnel entrance, causing them to spin out and crash against the divider. Madeline woke up to blood on her forehead, and the driver unconscious. Headlights filled the tunnel. Then footsteps. 3 men approached, dressed in black. One leaned in and whispered, You were supposed to stay grateful, Miss Grayson, not curious. She reached for her phone, but it was gone. The man lifted a syringe. It'll just look like trauma-induced regression.
Just as the needle neared her neck.
A voice echoed down the tunnel. Step away from her. The men turned. At the far end of the tunnel stood a figure, shaking, gaunt, eyes tired, but burning with something new. Aaron. He'd followed her. He'd remembered. And now, he had nothing left to lose. A week later, the courtroom was full. Press, protesters, cameras. At the front, Aaron sat beside a public defender, hands folded, a small tremor in his fingers. He hadn't worn a suit in over a decade, but today, Madeline had one tailored for him. She watched from the front row, breath held. The judge turned to him. Mr. Ellison, you have the floor. Aaron stood, his voice uncertain at first, but gaining strength with every word. I was silenced for 10 years. Not because I was unstable, but because I knew something the Graysons wanted buried. I was a med student when I discovered falsified research documents tied to Grayson Pharmaceuticals' experimental treatments. They were bypassing ethical trials, using vulnerable patients without full consent. He paused. I filed a report, I prepared to testify, and then everything changed. He turned toward Margaret Grayson's legal team. I was diagnosed with dissociative symptoms, but I know now that was manufactured. Gasps rippled through the room. I was admitted. I wasn't given a trial. I disappeared. The judge asked gently, "Do you have proof?" Aaron nodded. "My memory, my records." And then he held up the original sealed report one Zoe had helped uncover. By evening, the footage had gone viral. Justice for Aaron trended worldwide. People flooded the streets outside Horizon Institute. Protesters held signs. Mental health is not a weapon. Grayson lies is lives lost. Madeline gave no interviews. She didn't need to. Aaron had spoken for them both. In the Grayson Estates drawing room, Margaret threw a decanter across the wall. He was supposed to be gone. Her attorney whispered, "We could still settle." Quietly, she shot him a look. "If we fall with half this city's politicians." A pause. "Leak her father's documents," she said coldly. "The ones from before she was born." The lawyer hesitated. "Even she doesn't know about them." Exactly. That night, Zoe received an anonymous package at Madeline's penthouse. Inside, a black USB drive. A note scribbled in pen. "There's more than just Aaron. There's blood money." She plugged it in. It revealed dozens of sealed transactions, bribery payouts, clinic shutdowns, gag orders. But one file was marked in red. ME, Juvenile Dismissal Protocol. Zoe's eyes widened. ME wasn't Margaret.
It was Madeline Ellis.
Zoe ran upstairs to find Madeline staring at old childhood photographs. "Did you ever forget parts of your life?" Madeline asked quietly. Zoe froze. "There's something you need to see." She handed her the USB. Madeline scrolled through the documents and stopped. One file showed a psychiatric admission form for a 10-year-old girl. The name? Madeline Ellis. She dropped the laptop. "What is this?" Zoe whispered, "They institutionalized you too." A sudden wave crashed over Madeline. A white hallway. A locked door. The scent of antiseptic. A voice saying she's too emotional. Unstable. Just like her father. And then blackness. She never remembered being 10. Until now. The next morning, as Madeline prepared to go public with the new revelation, a breaking news alert hit every screen in the city. Zoe gasped. Madeline turned pale. On screen, Aaron being escorted in handcuffs by federal officers. Aaron Ellison arrested for tampering with classified medical data and falsifying testimony. New evidence suggests his claims may have been fabricated to extort Grayson Pharmaceuticals. Zoe whispered, "This is planted." Madeline's eyes burned. They're framing him again. And as the camera zoomed in, Aaron looked up, eyes meeting Madeline's and mouthed one word, "Run." Zoe paced by the penthouse window, watching as Madeline packed a backpack. "Going off the grid? You sure about this?" Madeline zipped the bag and nodded. If they're trying to silence Aaron again, it means the next truth is even uglier. Zoe handed her the drive. "Everything's on here. The clinic, the money, the sealed files." Madeline met her eyes. "If I don't come back." "You will," Zoe said, tears brimming, "but bring him back with you." Later that night, Madeline slipped into a nondescript apartment above a pawn shop. Inside sat Lance, a former Grayson Systems engineer turned whistleblower. He'd once helped leak internal memos. Now he was the only one who could decrypt the redacted files on the US. You've got about 10 layers of encryption on this thing, he muttered. But the headers? They're marked Asset Realignment Protocol. That's old school, pre-corporate takeover. Madeline's hands shook. What does that mean? It means you weren't just a patient, Madeline. He turned the screen. You were part of a trial. Lance unlocked in 1992 Project E. Ellis Emotional Lineage and Inheritance Study. Underneath it, subject, Madeline Ellis. Status, induced trauma response to test cognitive recall post-separation. Guardian, Margaret Grayson. Note, subject exhibits high empathy potential. Monitor for suppression compatibility. Madeline stared at the screen. I was engineered to be emotionally numb. Lance nodded. They tested you to see how much you could forget and still function. She covered her mouth. All this time, I thought I chose ambition, but they designed me to chase it without conscience. At the Federal Holding Center, Aaron sat chained to a bench. He wasn't broken. Not this time, because this time he remembered everything. Every time he'd cried for help. Every time they ignored him. And this time he wasn't alone. An officer dropped a file on the table. You've got a visitor. Lawyer. She says her name's Maddie. Aaron looked up, hope flaring in his eye. But when the door opened, it wasn't Madeline. It was Margaret. Meanwhile, Madeline called the legal press. She was ready to leak everything. As the phone rang, another call came through. Her mother. She picked up. You're really going through with this? Margaret's voice was icy. I should have done it years ago, Madeline said. You buried me before I even became me. Margaret sighed, and yet you rose. That unfeeling ambition, that wasn't a curse. It was a gift. I gave you the world, Maddie. No, Madeline replied. You stole mine. Margaret's voice dropped. If you release those files, you'll regret it. Madeline ended the call and sent the files. Back at the penthouse, Zoe watched as Madeline's name exploded across the internet. Whistleblower, survivor, heir to the lie. But just as she started celebrating, an alert popped up on her screen. FBI search warrant issued for Madison Madeline Grayson, suspected cyber espionage and evidence tampering. She called Madeline in a panic. They're coming for you now. Madeline's voice was calm. I figured they would, but this time, I'm not hiding. Madeline arranged a live interview, a primetime slot on public access TV, her last unfiltered channel. As the cameras rolled, she looked directly into the lens. My name is Madeline Ellis, and I was raised to forget, but I remember now. She spoke of Aaron, the experiment, the cover-up, her own erased memories. But mid-broadcast, the screen flickered, then went black. Signal lost. As Madeline was rushed off the set, escorted by volunteers to a safe house, she received a message. No number, just a file. She opened it. A live video feed. Aaron, chained, bruised, blood at the corner of his mouth. And standing behind him, not Margaret, not a Grayson, but an older man with a scar across his temple. The nameplate on his desk read, Dr. Gerald Stone, Chief Architect, Project Ellis. He leaned into the camera. Your father didn't die in a car accident, Madeline. He created you. And now, it's time you remembered the rest. The feed cut. A dusty keycard arrived at Madeline's safe house in an unmarked envelope. No return address, no note, just a stamped set of GPS coordinates. Zoe traced the location, an abandoned biotech facility off the Hudson, long decommissioned supposedly. You can't go alone, Zoe warned. Madeline tucked a recorder into her jacket. I have to. He wants me to remember, and I will. She walked through the rusted gates as dusk settled over the overgrown compound. Inside, the lights flickered to life, automatically triggered by her presence. Old photos lined the corridor. Children, charts, experiments. And in the center hallway, a wall-sized photo of her, age 10. Eyes distant, expression blank. Caption, Subject 07, primary empathy threshold candidate. Her breath caught. She turned a corner. And there he was, Dr. Gerald Stone. Older, frailer, but still cold. You've grown into her well, he said. Madeline's voice trembled. Why am I here? To finish what we started. Gerald led her into a sealed lab, lined with files and flickering monitors. Project Ellis wasn't about trauma, he said. It was about emotional design. Can we shape a human to feel exactly what we want when we want? Madeline's fists clenched. You used me. He shook his head. I built you. He pulled up a screen showing footage from the early There, a woman, Margaret, in a hospital room, holding a newborn. The baby didn't cry. She couldn't bond. She had too much trauma of her own, Gerald said. So we tried something different. The video glitched. Another woman, crying, fighting nurses. The caption below, biological mother, subject terminated. Madeline stepped back. I wasn't born into this family. You were selected. In the adjacent room, Aaron was chained to a bed, medical wires hooked into his arm. He stirred as Madeline entered. Maddie, he whispered. She rushed to him. You found me, he said. They told me you were gone. I'll never leave again. She turned to Gerald. You did this to him too. He nodded calmly. We needed someone with high empathetic alignment to test against you. You paired us on purpose. We watched what love did to you. It made you unpredictable. That's when we knew we had to start over. Madeline's eyes filled with tears. You built me to feel, and then punished me for it. Gerald slid a file across the table. A legal contract with biometric override keys. Sign this, and the past disappears. You go back to your empire. We scrubbed the last month from public record. You win. Madeline glanced at Aaron. He was barely conscious, mumbling her name. No, she said. We both win, or none of us do. She grabbed the recorder from her jacket and hit play. Gerald's voice echoed. I built you. He lunged forward. She ducked. The file caught fire as it hit the desk lamp. Sprinklers activated. Sparks flew. Alarms screamed. Aaron jolted, wide awake. They're coming, he whispered. In the chaos, Madeline and Aaron fled through the back exit tunnels. She pulled up schematics from the stolen USB. There's a secondary server room. We can shut the project down for good. But as they entered the corridor, they froze. A girl stood there, 12 years old, same eyes, same hair, same blank stare. Behind her, 2 security officers. Gerald's voice rang out over the PA. Meet subject 09. Our new generation, higher resilience, lower empathy. The girl stared at Madeline and whispered, They say I'm better than you. Madeline stepped forward, heart pounding. No, you're me. The light snapped off. The flickering hallway lights revealed the girl subject 09 standing motionless. Behind her, 2 guards flanked the corridor. She looked just like Madeline at age 12, too much like her. Same eyes, same tilt of the head, same stillness that wasn't natural. Madeline took a step forward. I'm not your enemy, she whispered. The girl tilted her head. You are. They said you failed. Failed what? The girl blinked. To become unbreakable. Subject 09 raised her hand, palm out. The guards stepped forward, weapons drawn. Madeline raised hers too, not in defense, but slowly trembling. I wasn't made to break, she said. I was made to feel. And that's what saved me. The girl's hand faltered. You cried, she said. I've seen the files. They said crying is weakness. Madeline's eyes brimmed with tears. No. Crying means you're alive. A flash of doubt flickered in subject 09's eyes. And then, a gunshot. The bullet struck the wall just inches beside Aaron, who had moved to shield Madeline. He stumbled. Madeline turned and screamed, Aaron! He grunted, blood seeping through his jacket. But he didn't fall. I'm okay, he hissed, but we're out of time. Madeline turned back towards subject. Let us go, please. Subject 09 looked between them, then lowered her hand. I don't want to be like them. With subject 09 silently stepping aside, Madeline and Aaron made it into the central server chamber. Old machines hummed with unstable energy. A countdown timer blinked red. Full system backup. Aaron leaned against the console, pale. This is it, Madeline said. We destroy this core, and Project Ellis dies with it. He handed her a flash drive. Upload the corrupted schema. That'll fracture the neural architecture. She inserted it, but the system locked her out. Access denied, primary key required. Her father's voice echoed from the wall speakers. You were never meant to shut this down. You are the system. Zoe, back at the safe house, worked from her laptop to send backup. But suddenly, her screen flashed. A signal inside the corrupted files. A tracer. She whispered. No, he planted a tracker in the drive. The system hadn't been corrupted. It had been alerted. Back in the facility, the doors slammed shut. Gas hissed through the vents. Madeline grabbed Aaron. They're sealing us in. Suddenly, monitors came to life. Dr. Gerald Stone appeared on every screen, seated calmly with a breathing mask. You don't get to undo me, Madeline. You don't get to rewrite your purpose. She screamed at the monitor, "This isn't your story anymore." "But it's still yours," he said. And the screens changed. They showed photos of dozens of girls. Clones, variants, versions, all labeled Madeline Ellis, batch. Aaron whispered, stunned. "There's more." Stone's voice echoed, "You were just the first to run. They never stopped. You just stopped watching." Sirens wailed. The backup core began flashing. A final option appeared on the central screen. Empathy reset. Execute final override? Aaron leaned against the console, weak. "If you trigger that, every version of you, every clone loses emotional memory." "They'll survive," Madeline whispered, "but they'll become what they wanted." And another screen blinked. "Or core purge. Warning, may kill all linked subjects." Madeline's hand hovered. Aaron gripped hers. "You don't have to carry this alone." Tears streamed down her face. And then, Subject 09's voice came from the doorway. "If I help you, will I still be real?" Madeline turned, and the lights began to dim. The room was silent, except for the whirring of backup servers and the quiet hum of the override prompt blinking on the screen. Subject 09 stepped forward, her voice fragile. "They said I wasn't meant to feel, but I've watched you cry, and I want to know what that means." Madeline looked at her, tears threatening. "It means you care," she said softly. "And if you care, you're already real." Subject 09 looked down at her small hands, then nodded. "I'll help you." Madeline turned back to the console. "I need your biometric key," she said. Subject 09 placed her palm on the sensor. The screen flashed. Secondary access verified. Subject 09 active conscious state. The reset prompt disappeared. A new option appeared. Initiate liberation protocol. Manual confirmation required. Aaron, leaning heavily against the console, whispered, "What is that?" "It breaks the neural links, gives each clone autonomy, frees their emotional programming." "But," Madeline's eyes darkened, "it could overload the system. It could kill them." Subject 09 whispered, "Or it could let them live." Suddenly, the monitors lit up. Dr. Gerald Stone appeared, this time through a direct security feed. "I warned you, Madeline," he said. "You are not equipped to make this choice." "You made me this way," she shot back. "And look what a failure you turned out to be," he sneered. "You're willing to risk them all for what?" "A feeling." He tapped something off screen. Suddenly, the lab doors hissed open. A stream of young girls entered. Clones, between ages 8 and 4, all with her face, all watching her. Stone's voice echoed, "Tell them, Madeline, tell them you're the reason they might die tonight." Madeline stepped onto a platform beside the server. She looked at the girls. "I know you're scared. I was too. I was told emotions made me weak." She gestured to Aaron. "He showed me that feeling is strength. That love, even broken love, is still love." The girls stood still. "But I won't make this choice for you. If you want to stay this way, quiet, emotionless, empty, I understand." A pause. "But if you want to know what it's like to laugh when something's silly or cry when someone hurts, then come with me." Subject 09 stepped beside her. One by one, the girls stepped forward. Madeline initiated the liberation protocol. Lines of code began transferring. Suddenly, clones throughout the compound, and even some watching remotely, began blinking, breathing harder, clutching their chests. Tears welled in their eyes for the first time. One whispered, I remember a sunset, but I never saw it." Another began humming a lullaby no one had taught her. It was working. But then, alert, system of failure, core breach imminent. Stone's voice returned, but now panicked. "You didn't just trigger empathy," he barked. "You triggered the failsafe. The clones' minds, they weren't designed to hold that much emotion. They'll collapse. You'll collapse." Madeline clutched her head. Flashes of pain ripped through her skull. She collapsed to her knees. Aaron grabbed her. "What's happening?" She gritted her teeth. "He linked us, every clone, to me. If she shut down, they all did. If they collapse, so would she." Subject 09 looked down at her. "Let me take the load." "No." But the girl placed her hand on Madeline's chest. A surge of light shot through them. The server screamed. Suddenly, everything stopped. The lights flickered. Madeline gasped. But what she saw next wasn't the lab. She was standing in a hospital room, holding a baby. Not a clone, not a subject, a real child. Someone else's. She looked up at the wall. Calendar from A voice whispered, "She'll never know she wasn't yours." Madeline turned and saw a woman in scrubs injecting a sleeping mother. And next to her, a younger Dr. Stone. Her vision blurred. Back in the lab, her eyes snapped open. She whispered to Aaron, "I was never even supposed to be Madeline." The screen goes black. Madeline sat slumped near the server core, sweat lining her forehead, the echo of that unfamiliar memory still fresh. She had held a child. She had been a child, but it wasn't Margaret's arms that cradled her. And it wasn't Gerald Stone's voice naming her. A stolen life, she whispered. Not just stolen memories, but stolen blood. Aaron sat beside her, gripping her hand. "What did you see?" "I saw a mother I never knew, a life someone else erased." She looked into Aaron's eyes. "They didn't just build me, they replaced someone." Subject 09 led them to a hidden chamber at the rear of the facility. "I've only seen him go here," she whispered. Madeline forced the door open. Inside, analog tapes, red folders, and a dusty terminal labeled Origin Code, Prototype, AA file locked by Gerald Stone. Aaron hacked the system. One file unlocked with a biometric match from subject. The file's title chilled Madeline to her bones. Project Phoebe, reassignment of biological subject ME. Inside the file, birth certificate redacted. Original name, Phoebe Lynn Carver. Biological mother, Dr. Claire Carver. Status terminated following non-compliance. Custody reassigned to Margaret Grayson, cover identity. Madeline's knees buckled. "My name's not Madeline," Aaron whispered. "They erased a person and made you wear her life." Zoe streamed the clone liberation footage to the public servers. News outlets exploded with headlines. Grayson Empire built on human experimentation. Clones break free from corporate neural network. Whistleblower Madeline Grayson missing after facility explosion. The world was finally watching. But what no one saw was the last file still uploading in the background. A hidden protocol embedded in the clone network. One last ghost from Gerald Stone. Back in the failing lab, Madeline confronted Dr. Stone one final time. He stood alone in the emergency backup vault, a vial in one hand. "I warned you, Phoebe," he said. "This world wasn't made for you. We made you fit." "I was never yours to name," she spat. "You stole me." Stone raised the vial, a silvery, nanotech-filled serum. "I embedded the final trigger in every liberated mind. If I die, they collapse." Aaron lunged toward him, but it was Subject 09 who moved faster. She tackled Stone to the ground. The vial flew into the air. Madeline caught it, but it cracked in her palm, fluid seeping into her skin. Her body seized. Her eyes flickered. The system lit up, red, alerting. Aaron shouted, "She's sinking with the core." Subject 09 screamed, "She's replacing him!" The monitors shifted. Admin control reassigned, Phoebe L. Carver. Emotion sync engaged. All clones linked to primary subject. Madeline gasped, then fell to her knees. "I feel them all. Pain, joy, terror, wonder." The liberated clones, their emotions flooded her mind at once. Too many, too fast. "I can't hold it." Suddenly, all the screens turned white. Dr. Stone laughed weakly from the floor. "She's become the motherboard now. She can't separate herself from them. If she shuts the system down now, she'll lose herself forever." Aaron looked at her. "You have to let go." Madeline's eyes glowed. "I don't know who I am without them." "Then don't let go," Subject 09 said softly. "Lead us." The console blinked. Final decision. Purge network and free clone. Maintain linked control with Phoebe as host. Integrate system. All clones become one entity. Madeline's hand hovered over the terminal. Her voice, breaking. "Do I give them freedom or become them?" The screen starts to count down. The system beeps echoed like a metronome of fate. Madeline knelt by the terminal, her skin still glowing with the nanotech serum. Subject 09 stood beside her. Aaron, bleeding and exhausted, leaned against the door. Final decision. Purge network and free clones. Maintain linked control with Phoebe as host. Integrate system. All clones become one entity.
The world was watching, not through screens,
but through the eyes of the girls who shared her DNA, and now her heart. Subject 09 whispered, "You don't have to save us. Just choose for you." Madeline stared at the options, trembling. "Stone thought I had no agency," she murmured. that I was only valuable if I was controllable. Aaron coughed. You were never his. You're not theirs, not anyone's. She closed her eyes. I don't want to be their mother or their master. Then she reached forward and pressed Purge Network and Free Clones. The system began to overload. Lights sparked. The console glowed bright gold. Each clone across the facility and the world dropped to their knees, clutching their heads, and then, peace. The network went silent. Each girl blinked. Each one stood, and for the first time, they felt alone, but free. Madeline collapsed. Aaron caught her.
Is she?
Subject 09 placed 2 fingers on her wrist. She's alive. Weeks later, Madeline sat on a bench outside the rebuilt Phoenix Institute, a recovery and advocacy center for former Ellis subjects. She watched girls play in the courtyard, not as subjects, but as people. Zoe approached with a folder. Congress officially declared the program criminal. Everyone involved is under indictment, including Margaret. Madeline didn't flinch. He raised someone who never existed, she said, and now I get to become someone who does. Aaron stood before a crowd at a national mental health summit. His voice was clear. I was silenced for a decade, but I never lost who I was, and neither did the person who saved me. The crowd rose. Applause thundered. In the back, Madeline stood, hand over her heart. This was no longer about exposure. It was about healing. Later, Aaron joined her on the bench. You know, he said, you're still Madeline to me. She smiled softly. I think I'm finally okay with that. Subject 09 walked over, now in her own clothes, a hoodie, jeans, and paint on her hands. I made something, she said. She held up a canvas. It showed a phoenix rising from ash, surrounded by other smaller birds breaking from wire cages. Madeline's eyes welled. It's beautiful. Subject 09 smiled. So are you. That night, Madeline walked alone under the city lights, the same streets where her journey had begun. She passed a woman offering shelter flyers, a man handing out food. She stopped, sat beside a homeless veteran, shared a coffee, asked his name, not because she pitied him, but because she saw him. Because she finally saw herself, not in the power she once had, but in the choice she made to give it up. We are not the titles we're given, the roles we inherit, or the paths we're handed. We are the choices we make, especially when no one's watching. What did this story teach you about identity, redemption, and finding your voice in a world that wants to define it for you? Have you ever had to rewrite your story? Let us know in the comments, and if this journey moved you, like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes, the richest story isn't about how you began, it's about how you rise.